That magic book was terrible. The author had forgotten to run a spell check. So this was my first Camus, first philosophical work, first encounter with existentialism, a lot of firsts. May I just also add that this was my first French classic and the first adult French book that I've read in French. I'm so proud of tackling this, definitely a whole week of intense reading, and a huge thank you to my French friend Emily, who helped me translate separate phrases when I didn't really get the meaning. French level was somewhere between B1 and B2. It wasn't easy reading and there were a lot of new words, but overall it was okay for me to understand. So if your French level is something like mine, then I suggest you also try and read it. Why not? Now onto the video. I want to have a little discussion with you because I know this is a famous read and a popular one, and I just want to ask you some questions and see what your thoughts are, as well as share mine. I'll do a mini review and talk about the questions that I found interesting. The question bit will contain spoilers, but feel free to stay for the spoiler-free review starting now. I gave the book 4 stars, and honestly maybe a little bit of it was because it was lost in translation because my French skills aren't perfect, but yeah, because the first part, it wasn't really my thing, except for the iconic line that aujourd'hui maman est morte, ou peut-être hier, je ne sais pas. Side note, I just wanted everyone to hear that in French because I was like wondering which would be the best translation for English, for me to quote the English version of the book. So I went on the internet and I found this article. I'll display it right here. And basically the article was saying that, well, English translations have been getting it wrong for years by saying mother died today, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't know. The article said that it should be maman died today. I won't go into the details, you can search up the article yourself, but I think that the maman translation is better too. Of course, my side notes are longer than what I wanted to say. Apart from the first line, although the first part was really good, it just fell a little flat in comparison to the amazing second part, especially the final pages. Oh my god. Really took careful attention to explore the inner world of the protagonist and structured these final parts so intricately and so well. How could I not love it? How could I then not compare the first part to the second part? It made me want to reread the whole thing again, and I think that I will definitely do that when I'm older, because for sure there are some things that I could glean later on that I perhaps don't understand right now. The protagonist has such a distinct sort of personality. He's detached, but at the same time such an important part of the story, and this leaves the reader with a bit of a floating sense. Maybe it's just me, but I personally felt that I was levitating through the events of the story. For a moment I was two people at once, and I was feeling the summery warmth on my skin. Considering the fact it's currently winter in Russia and it's cold, even with all the under the surface tension, I really bathed in the first warm part of the story that Camus created, and then really felt the shivers in the second part. This is a very short story, and I think it plays to its advantage. When it finishes, you're left with a deeply satisfied but very uncomfortable sense, and it just feels so weird to close the book, or in my case, turn off the device. It reads easily, but it's not an easy book. I think it has so many questions that it poses and so much potential, like so much opening to interpretation. If you've read it, please let me know your thoughts, maybe some particularly notable details that you found, or just your take on the questions that I will pose, etc. One of my favorite classics now, so if you're looking for a short read, like 100 or so pages, that will impact your life, that will 100% impact your life in some way, then The Stranger awaits you. More and more now, I find that as time progresses, it gives my brain time to digest the information from this book, and I find myself liking it more and more. I've heard a phrase that wine needs to settle, something like that. Well, if that's the case, then think of The Stranger as some exquisite sort of wine that's some like special wine that you need to taste first, and then give it a week to really take it in, to compare it to your life, to think back to the quotes you love, to mule over the plot progression. Maybe watch the movie too? I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard good things. Now let's talk about the questions. Thank you for watching the spoiler-free review. If you haven't read the book, then I guess it's goodbye from now, but thanks for watching up to this part. I went into this with no background knowledge other than the two assumptions that A, this was a philosophical read, correct assumption. 2, and the less correct assumption that because this is a philosophical read and an existentialist read, the only question posed will be, what is the meaning of life? In this novel, philosophical questions are very heavily explored, but it's not just the type of questions like, why am I here? Answer is just to suffer. Kidding. Another important thing to note is that there are not really correct answers. So if you're thinking like, I'm not going to spill the answers to life, the universe, and everything. 42, the answer is 42. Stop. Okay, so these questions that I found are kind of obvious if you read it, but like, I'll just briefly mention them anyway. Number 1, what makes us human? So Marceau got condemned for essentially lacking empathy. Someone who's been labeled less empathetic than 98 people in a room, big 5 personality test, I find that terrifying. You might say that he got imprisoned for killing, for murder. Sure, but I think that if he showed remorse and like to the act that he did and to the death of his mother, things would have turned out differently. I don't know, what makes us human? Maybe it's the fact that unlike a machine, we can find cause and effect. Maybe it's the empathy. Maybe it's the fact that we live and we know that we're going to die at some point. We consciously know that and we consciously recognize that fact. Maybe it's the way that we've evolved to suppress our desires and not do anything we've always wanted to do. I don't think it matters the amount of empathy you have. I feel empathy for my friends, for my family, for random people, but like for animals as well. But if I step on an insect and I don't know that I've killed it, and I don't know that it's wrong because I don't know that I've killed it, I can't feel empathy for it. And here's the thing, of course I'm talking about insects and me not knowing, and Marceau was talking about actual murder, but still, the book left me with a grim sense of unfairness, because for Marceau to die just because he didn't show that empathy, because he didn't recognize that his act was seen in the wrong way at the time. What matters in the end? Speaking of grim revelation, when that priest got so offended that Marceau doesn't believe in the afterlife or whatever, like, look at Marceau living out his whole life, bathing with that girl he likes, going to the movies, living by the present, and then suddenly because of his actions, bam, it's all changed and he has so much time to think about his life and he's going to die, and in the end, what does it even matter? Was his life pointless? I don't know, I feel like sometimes instead of living, I exist, and other times I think of changing that, but then life comes in and I think, what's the point of changing that if in the end, is it going to matter? Is it something that's going to matter? I'm turning 16 this year and I have a long time, I hope, to figure it out, to figure out what matters, and I'm glad that I had this book to serve as a reminder, because now I can use this time to figure out, well, what's going to matter for me in the end. Sometimes it's dark though, but maybe that's another thing that makes us human, plowing through life when it gets hard, and now I intend to do that. I intend to plow on and try and find out. Perhaps I will never find out, that is most likely that I will not find out, but I want to try and see what life has to offer fully now before I depart. Number 3, do we feel our emotions, or is it others and society that dictates them? Let's come back to that whole empathy thing. The personality test gave me higher in conscientiousness and all of that, like intelligence, medium, and extrovertness. It's just a test. Search it up if you're interested. Big 5 personality test. Also, the results depend on the mood you're in, so maybe I was feeling a little bit depressed and, well, skeptical about life, so don't know how accurate this is. It gave me less in agreeableness because I don't always show my empathy. I feel it, but I don't always feel the need to express it. Let's not psychoanalyze me though, please. Let's just talk about why exactly I feel it. Is it because that if I don't, then like Marceau, I will be labeled a stranger? Yeah, I'm not going into this now because that's a whole lot of questions to shift through for a short discussion video that I wanted to do. So yeah, but definitely these are issues that I want to address later. Finally, 4, why do we do what we do? Why did Marceau go to the movies the second day after his mother's death? Is it only his lack of means to sustain her that made him place her in a home? Camus had such an interesting take on all of these questions, and even though there's just so many questions and not so many answers, and I find that infuriating. I also find it crazy satisfying. This is why I love this book. First impression was okay, but give it some time and just 100% love the book. Thank you for watching this video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.